Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is your boy Keith the Guy, and we got some fish to fry. And I wanted to bring something to your attention. Have you ever wanted to get that nice, crisp film look that you see in certain films, such as They Cloned Tyrone? You know what that's called? That's called film emulation. And today we're gonna try to implement that using only 2 nodes in DaVinci Resolve. And this video is sponsored by Dehancer. We're gonna go ahead and replicate that now. So let's get started. Enough with the jibber jabber. Let's hop right in. The first thing we're gonna do is go into our color management and create a pipeline that will get us to where our starting point needs to be. So the first thing we're gonna do is go to DaVinci YRGB, click on this use separate color space and gamma, change this to DaVinci wide gamma, DaVinci intermediate, and same as timeline. And we're going to utilize this image. It's always important to look at your image and see what is possible. So lighting, settings, things of that nature, your colors inside your image really matter. I could tell based on this image, there's a lot of greens, blues, and teals in this image. And it's going to make my process a little bit quicker and a little bit more expedited. Now, the thing that we always look to do as film editors is how can we get the job done efficiently? Now, efficiently basically means getting the job done quickly without the loss of quality. So that's why I'm going to only use 2 nodes, and that's going to be possible using Dehancer. Now, of course, you can get that film look taking the long route using these LUTs that DaVinci Resolve provided, the film looks, and just creating a whole node tree. But I want to get the job done quick, so I'm only going to be using Dehancer and this skin node to get my skin tones properly. So we're going to close the LUT, and if you have your clip open, go ahead and close that too, so we can get more real estate to work with. So the first thing we're going to do is type up Dehancer, and it kind of gave us a look already. A look that we are definitely not going to use because it makes me look unattractive and it makes the whole image look unattractive, and we don't want that. So now that we went ahead and dragged Dehancer in there, let's click on that node and adjust some parameters. So before I go ahead and just do a whole edit, let me explain what each parameter means and what its job is. So input is basically what is your source material? What are you shooting on? So that's basically what input is. Now there's going to be a little button down here that's going to tell you to download your particular camera. In this case, I use the Canon R5. So I'm going to utilize that. Now, what Film Developer does is it allows you to make your own development recipe depending on the source material, the shooting conditions, and the creative task. It may not make sense to you as a beginner, but trust me, if you follow along with me, it'll make a little bit more sense. Now, moving on to film, this is where the nook and crannies of Dehancer is going to be. Now, you're going to choose your profile, and that's how you're going to start off your edits. Now, the first thing I like to do is adjust my input and my film and then get into everything else. So be mindful of film. This is where the magic happens. So film compression is where you're going to be adjusting your highlight parameters of your image. So just in case you clipped your highlights after you put in Dehancer, this is where you can make the fine adjustments here in film compression. Moving on to Expamd, this is where we're going to be controlling the contrast of our image. So adjusting our black and white points will increase the contrast of the film. More than likely in film emulation, there isn't too much contrast going on, but if you wanted to add in some, here's where you do it. Now, print may come off as a little bit complicated, but all you really need to do here is leave it on linear. If you're using a digital camera, such as a Canon R5, a Sony A7S, or Nikon D, whatever, just leave it on linear. Trust me, you don't want to change this. And we're going to move over to color head. Now, this is where we're going to get that film look, that orange teal look that you're constantly seeing in almost every film. So adjusting our yellows, blues, magentas, greens, cyans, and reds, and just separating them will give you that orange teal look that you're looking for. And it also allows you to adjust the shadow tones, the midtones, and the highlight tones. So this is where a lot of the creativity is going to occur as well. Now, film grain is kind of self-explanatory. Film grain basically reintroduces noise into your image. And you're probably wondering, why the heck would I do that? It's a creative decision. A lot of films use it, trust me. For example, they cloned Tyrone. There is so much film grain in there, and you probably haven't even noticed. Our eyes are kind of used to that film grain look. Everything else beneath, I'm not gonna go ahead and touch, but if you wanna go ahead and play with those parameters, you can, but we're only gonna be focusing on the few that I mentioned just now. So I'm gonna go ahead and start off with my input and my film. Now, it's super crucial as a colorist to know what camera was used on set. Me, I shot this myself. As you can see, your boy right there holding that Panasonic GH4 that I never ever used. I actually shot this on a Canon R5. So we're gonna go ahead and adjust that. So we're gonna go to choose camera. We're gonna go to Canon, and we didn't use the C200, we used the R5, and we did use Log 3 Cinema Gamut. Now be mindful, there's gonna be a button that you're gonna have to press somewhere here to download all those different sources, and it's going to be the same thing with film. You're going to have to download all those profiles. Let me choose the film profile that I know I'm going to use, which is going to be the 500T, and as you can see, it looks far more natural. And a rule of thirds when it comes down to editors, an edit that goes unnoticed is a good edit. So you never want to edit to the degree where it's noticeable. So Kodak Vision 3 500T kind of brings me back to reality. Your image may be a little different. Just play around with it and see which profile works best for you. Now let's go back to our exposure, temperature, and tint, and let's adjust these parameters to get a more seamless look. So for the exposure, I think I'm gonna make it a little bit darker. Put it down to, I'm liking 744. As a matter of fact, let's turn on our waveform so I know exactly what we're doing to the exposure. For the temperature, I'm gonna make it a little bit more warm to get some color separation. So I'm gonna bring it to 10.1. And as for the tint, I'm not gonna mess with that. I'm not gonna mess with any of these. So we got our input and our film adjusted. So let's go to Film Developer and adjust our saturation and our brightness a little bit more. So I wanna boost some contrast in there. So let me go ahead and bring it to 6.4. and notice what it's doing to the waveform as we're editing it. And let's go ahead and correct the gamma a little bit. Gamma being where our skin tones, midtones are. So let's adjust that a smidge. That's it, just one click, that's all I need. And I like my images a little saturated, so let's go ahead and color boost it. You know what, let's enable it. And do we want to color boost it? Nah, let's leave the color boost alone. I think it's saturated enough. So let's jump over to Expand and let's put in a little bit more contrast. So I'm gonna start with the white point, try to get it to 896. All right, 87 is fine. Now the image is popping out a little bit more. Let's adjust our black points a little bit too. Negative 0.073. Now I'm looking down here. I never like my blacks crushing, so I just brought it up a little bit so we can have some wiggle room and breathe room in our darks. Print, like I said, let's leave it alone and leave it at linear. Let's go to color head, and this is where a lot of the creativity is going to be as well. This is where we're going to get our orange teal film look. So let's go ahead and enable it. Let's turn off the gain, because what gain does is it affects all of them and we're just going to affect them separately. So let's reset it, turn off the gain. I already know I want to introduce a little bit more yellow into it since it's a primarily blue image to give a little color separation. Let's bring up the greens so we can bring out those grass blades a little bit. And since my skin tone is looking a little nasty, and of course we're going to fix it in our skin tone node, but if we could adjust a little bit here, that'd be great. So let's move it to cyan, which is the opposite of red, so we can get a more balanced skin tone. And let's go ahead and attack the shadow tones, midtones, and highlight tones. Now, if you go to the left, you're going to introduce a lot of blues into your shadows. If you go to the right, you're going to introduce a lot of yellows. In our orange teal look, the shadows have blues in them. So let's go ahead and drag it to the left to throw some blues into the shadow. And then we're going to do the polar opposite when it comes down to our midtones and our highlights. So let's throw in some yellow into our midtones. 15's enough. And our highlights, let's bring it out a little bit more. 19.3. No, too much. We dial it back, 17.4. We're gonna preserve our exposure and we're gonna make it have 100% impact. If you bring the impact out, it's not gonna do anything. So bringing it at 100% is bringing in all of these adjustments into our image. So film grain, I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off for my own creative reason. And let's go ahead and zoom in, put it at full screen and see the look that we got. As you could see, my skin tones, they're all right, but I want them a little bit more accurate. So we're gonna go ahead, get out of that, go to our skin node. And here's how I like to adjust my skin tones. First thing I like to do is add a window. So we're gonna go to power, windows. We're gonna just focus on my skin and my skin only. So just my face, let's isolate that. We're gonna go to Shift H and it's gonna go back over to my log color, but that's fine. We're gonna go to vector scope and we're going to try to bring this right here over to our skin tone indicator. Let me see if I have my 2x zoom. All right, perfect. Now, if you want to see it better, we could just adjust these parameters so we could see what's going on in the circle well. So I like to bring my vector scope all the way up. My gradical is fine where it's at. Keep the colorized on. Let's go to our hue versus hues and our curves. So we're gonna go to hue versus hues. We're gonna go ahead and click that eyedropper tool, and that's gonna be where our skin lies. And I'm going to adjust the hue rotation until it's touching that skin tone indicator, and that's perfect. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off our power window. It makes a big difference once you go ahead and click over to the Dehancer section, and it kind of put my skin tone in a more appropriate color. So let's go ahead, zoom in and take a look at that. You guys liking it? Is it giving you that film vibe? Y'all go ahead and bless my channel. Press that like button if this video was fruitful, and go ahead and subscribe. I have so much other videos that teach you guys how to color grade and to get things the way you want them to look. So this is it. We just fried some fish. My real name's Kit. Ippy, that's it. Deuces.
Maybe you only want what you can't have. Never seem to be satisfied till it all goes bad. Maybe I should just give someone else a chance. Why should I sit alone be said while you fumble to